Okay, so today we start the basic of the programming language, that is C, that is in your second semesters. So we will start from the basic such that you can understand the thing. So the first thing that we should know, because I expect that the student are from all background, that means they are from in class 12, they are not introduced the computer programming. So the first thing that we should know, that when you have to write anything in our computer, that is nothing but the binary format. That means whatever you write in your computer, that is nothing but the binary format. That means whether you are typing a key, like if we type a key A, actually the computer will not understood the symbol A. What will happen? They will know some values. That means whenever you just press A, what does that mean? Below the keyboard, when you are pressing A, there is a circuit that is called decoder. Actually, decoder that will convert this particular A into some value, and that particular value is known as ASCII value. That means every key in your keyboard is associated with a particular value, and that is nothing but an ASCII value. And the thing is this ASCII value that will be converted into a binary numbers. That means 6, the 6 is 1 1 0, like that. If we take 4 bits and say 5, that is 0 1 0 1. So actually when we are pressing A, that particular thing, that means this is a binary sequence that would be sent to the your computer. Then your computer will understood that okay, we are pressing A. So whatever symbol you are pressing through the keyboard, that means you are actually sending this particular binary data. Then only your computer will understand that what you are pressing. So the thing is that, but of course that is very much difficult for the human being to understand this binary sequence. Say that means you can say if admin say some binary sequence, say subtractions mean some binary sequence, and that is very difficult for the human being to understand that particular binary sequence. So what we can do, we can actually want to do something which is very favorable to our human being, and that's why we want to introduce a human, you can say, readable language. And that one is the one of the first language, not the first, but the first publicly accepted language, that is actually discovered by the Dennis Ritchie in Bell Lab, and that is called C language. So what we understood, that the English like language, C language is written in a English like format, English like language. So the question is that English like language that is very understandable by the human being, and as well as this binary language that will be very understandable by the machines. Then what will happen when you have to write the English like language that is very understandable by the human being, that is very understandable by the human being, and as well as you can say the binary language, that means binary language, that is, or you can say the machine language, and that is very understandable by the machines. This is very understandable by the machines. So you need a converter. You need a converter. What do you mean by converter? That means something that will take this English like language as an input, and that will produce the binary or machine level language as an output. and that is done by the program that is known as compiler. That means you can say this compiler is nothing but a program that will convert, that will take input as an English like language, and that will produce, you know, outputs as a machine like language. That is the basic thing. That means that is the basic thing. That means this compiler, this is nothing but a program that will take English like language as an input, and that will produce binary on the machine learning language as an output. Now the question is, what are the different types of compiler that we can use to run C program? So the thing is that there are lots of compiler that is available in the market, but the best one is whether you are using Linux or Ubuntu or whatever software, there is a GCC compiler. There is a GCC compiler that is very good. Uh, Actually, that is inbuilt compiler with the Linux machines or like that. And the thing is that there is also, if you have a Windows, then you can use either dev C++ or you can use code blocks like that. Either you can use dev C++ or either you can use code blocks. That means in both cases that are very good software. Now the first thing that you understood, that whenever you write a program in C, what will happen? You write the program in source code. That means whenever you write, we will see that first you have to write in C source code. C source code means you have to store the program, you have to write the program, and you have to store it in .c format. Now what will happen? Whenever you store in a .c format, there is called a preprocessor. There is called a preprocessor. That means preprocessor means, before writing a program or before running a program or before compiling a program, you have to do something. That's why this is known as a preprocessor. And then that would be converted into a expanded code. That means by doing some pre-processing, that should be the expanded code. And there comes the compiler. There comes, that is called compiler. And compiler, actually you can say, produce the assembly code, produce the assembly code, and that should be stored in .asm file. But you cannot store it, cannot see it easily, but if you want to see this particular code, you can see. So this is the .asm file, and after this assembly code, there is, that is called, you can say, assembler, and you can say that assembler will produce the object code. That assembler will produce the object code, and this is the .obj file. That is nothing but the object code. So now when you produce the object code, that is also binary code, but that will not run. So what will happen after object code has been produced? There is a concept that is called linker. This is called, you can say, linker. This linker, we have to add some, you can say, libraries, then as well as we can add some other object file, other, you can say, object files, and that will produce the, you can say, the executable code. That is called the exe or executable code. That is the thing. So the thing is that is nothing but the executable code. Just a minute, if the sound is echoing. So now the thing is that when we are producing this executable code, and then we can run it, and then we can run it, and that will produce, you can say, the output. So this is the process. This is the process, you can say, by which, this is the process by which we can actually write a C program and as well as run this particular C program. So this is the total process. Now the thing is that, so whenever you have to write a program, let's we just start writing a simple program. That means, of course, whenever you have to write some program, it has some particular syntax. I am not telling you that you have to remember all the syntax, but whenever you are writing several codes, day by day, you will learn the syntax automatically. So basically, you have to know a little bit of thing before you can write a program in C. So the thing is that, say I am writing a particular program. So whenever you have to write a program in C, whatever you have to write this is the hash include stdio.h. Just I am writing a program, then I am explaining that why we should write a program. That is the one of the important thing. That what is the reason? What is the reason to write a program? And then we can write like that. Say I am just printing a I just want to print say my name. So and this is nothing but like that. So this is the simple program, right? So the first question that is arising, that why we are writing this hash include stdio.h. What is the reason of writing that? The thing is that like you are start learning the C languages, and this is not included in your syllabus. Previously that is not included. So what will happen, whenever you have to start writing, either you should go to the library and you have to take the particular book, or you can search YouTube, whatever be the thing. That means if you don't know anything about this particular language and I am giving some questions to solve it, you cannot solve it until and unless you go to library, or you will take the help of library, it may be YouTube or something else. Then in only you can solve the exercises. So in that particular case, what will happen, whenever you have to write this particular program, what will happen, you have to include this particular thing in your program. So that means this is hash. What is the hash? This is named as preprocessor. This is named as preprocessor directive. This is known as preprocessor directive, and this is nothing but, you can say, standard input output. Standard input output, you can say, header file. This is the standard input output header file. So what we actually did in that case, so in that case we are including, you can say, including this stdio.h, this particular, you can say, header file, you can say, in our program, by this, you can say, by this preprocessor directive. Preprocessor directive, that is the meaning of that. What we are including this, because that we are writing main, we are writing integer, we are writing printf, we are writing return, and that type of meaning is not understandable by the program itself. That means that meanings are already been stored somewhere, and this somewhere is nothing but the library, right? That means that particular meaning will be stored in the library. What you did, you are including this particular library in our program, such that your program will understand the meaning of main, the meaning of printf, and all those stuffs. So this is the purpose of writing this. So if you are not writing this hash include stdio.h, what will happen? Your program will give you error. What do you mean by error? Like that, I am just giving you tasks to solve the discrete math problem, and discrete math is not, introduced in your syllabus. So somehow I just give you the discrete math and I have to give some problem, you have to solve it and you will get 0. Why you will get 0? Because you don't know the subjects here. So what we have to do before taking the exam, what you have to do, you have to learn the discrete math. That's why you have to go to the library, you have to choose the particular book, and after you can choose the particular book, you can solve the problem. So this is the same thing that is happening in C also. So that's why we are including stdio.h, that particular thing, and that is the syntax. That means why this is the angular bracket, why hash is used for preprocessor directive. That is not, we are not talking like that, because that is developed by the Dennis Ritchie, and Dennis Ritchie fixed that, right? So if you develop this particular language, you can also give some dollar sign in place of hash, then that should be a, all the people are used that. So the thing is that that particular syntax is already been developed, so that's why we are using that, but you should know the meaning of the syntax. Now what will happen, the next line that will include main, right? So the thing is, what do you mean by main? So by whenever you see this particular main, what will happen? That means we are just start writing the program. This main actually that will indicate that we are start writing the program. And why we should use integer, that will be discussed later. Just you should understood that default, return type, you can say default return type of main is integer. That means main is a function where the default return type that is fixed by the Dennis Ritchie is integer, right? So if you can run the program without using integer, that will also run. If you write void, that will also run, because different books will follow different notation, but it is always been better to use that the return type is integer. Why? Because the thing is, the default return type is already been fixed by the Dennis Ritchie and it is integer. Now what I'm just want to show the output. That means this printf will give you the corresponding output. I just want to show my name in the output. And this return 0, that means you can say, since I am using this integer, so I can write return. So you can write return 10, you can write return 15, you can write return any integer number that will be valid. It is not necessary that you will just give 0, right? But the thing is that you can write any integer number that is a valid sequence. So this is the simple program that you can say, that is a simple program. Now how can you run this particular program? How can you run this particular program? The thing is that if you can run this particular program, then either you can use any, either there is lots of online compiler are available. If you search in the net online C compiler, that will give you lots of compiler. But if you can run your own ID, I already, this is the code blocks. This is nothing but a code box, and you can run your program in code blocks. That is the thing, you can run your program in code blocks, because the thing is that code blocks will give you the interface, and that interface is nothing but similar as a GCC compiler. So you can use code blocks or dev C, C++, whatever be the thing, but you can use any of them. Now the thing is that if you want to write the particular program, then what you have to do, you have to go to this file, and there is a new and there is a empty file. This is the empty file, and I have to write the program here. That means, say I am writing the simple program that is already been written in the notebook. That means has include stdio.h, and the thing is that you can write like integer main, and the thing is that you have to just printf the simple thing, printf, and you can say my name. I just want to printf my name. So, and the thing is that you can say return 0. That is an initial notation, but you can. And how can you save this? You just save the file as, I am just say I'm taking the desktop, and here you can say this is a particular file where I just want to save it at the, say, the first program. So I can change the name, and it is, you can see that the C file. So first I can just save it, and when I am saving it, you just say that this color will be changing. That means this color will be, you can say, is already been changing. So this is the simple program that uh, we are writing here. Now the question is that before running, what I have to told you that in desktop you just see there is some, you can say, there is folder where you just see there is only one .c file that has been there. There is only one file that is being there, and this is nothing but the first.c. That is the only file that is being there, that is first.c. Now what will happen? I have to run the program, right? Just see what will happen. There is only one file, that is the .c file, that is stored in this particular folder, that is C YouTube Live, and we are storing that. Now what will happen? I just want to run it, right? What I want to run it, that means I am going to this particular thing, and this is the build and run, this particular button, and when you clicking this button, your program will be run. You just see that output that is been shown, that is Devayan, that is my name, and that will be printed in the output screen. But the interesting thing is what is changing in that particular file where we are storing the program. This particular file, that means you just see already two extra file that is created. One is the first.o, that is the object file, and if you click the object file, this is like that. Whatever be the written, that would not be, this meaning is not being clear, and it is not running. But when you are clicking the exe file, that will be, because the output is already been shown. So if we cross this particular output, and if you click this, it can run. But the main important thing that you should know, that if we see the corresponding thing, that means the properties, you will see that we'll have the 52.7 KB or near about 56 KB on disk. This is the size of the exe file, whereas if you see this first.o, then you can see that corresponding size is only 4 KB. This is only 4 KB. That is the one of the important observations that you should know. That means that whenever you are writing, that means whenever this object file is created, that is near about 4 KB, and this executable file, that is near about 64 KB. That means there is a massive increase in the size of this particular program. That means when you are, this object file is two combinations of zeros and ones, and this executable file is also the combination of zeros and one. But when you are linking some other file, that means you are expanding some other file, what will happen? The size will increase. So that is the basic difference of the object file. Object file will not run, but this executable file, that will be running. Now the questions that may come to your mind, that if we talk about the input output. Okay, before going to the input output, it is always been better that we should introduce the corresponding operator. So in the next class we will introduce the input output, and that is a very interesting thing. That means what should be the return type of printf, what should be the return type of scanf, and there are lots of problems that are coming about the return type, because printf will print this particular thing, but if this is the functions, that means functions will return something. So that's why we have to know that what should be the return type of that. So now before going to the details in C, the thing that you should know, that what are the different data types, what are the different data types in C, because if you know little bit about the Python, then what will happen, that in that particular Python you don't have to write any data type, but in C you have to write or you have to mention the data type. So the first thing that you should know, what are the different data types in C. If we talk about the different data types in C, actually the data type, that means there are the data type which is called, you can say, the primary data type, and this is called derived, or you can say the secondary, you can say, data type, the secondary data type. So in primary data type there is a integer, there is a float, there is, you can say, double, you can say there is a character, and there is a void. These are the 5 data types. This is called primary data type. You know about the integer. Integer means that simple, that means only the integers numbers, decimals number. The float, that means you can say after point you have to store, and double mean that is also some decimals numbers, but you know the size of the double is greater than the size of the float. And character, you know, a b c d, whatever be the thing, these are the character. And void means this is null, that means if this is, don't, if you are not using any data type, that is nothing but, you can say, the void data type. And what is a secondary data type? There are lots of secondary data type, like that you can see array is one of the secondary data type. You can see the thing is that array, or you can say the pointer, we will discuss later, or you can say structure, or you can say union. This all, etc., etc., are the derived or the secondary data type. Now the question is that, let's write a simple program. Let's write a simple program, and whoever in the live, I expect that you should give some answers, right? So just see the program, then we will talk about the, you just give me the answer. Say this is the simple program, we already been written. Now I'm just modifying the thing. I'm just modifying the thing. That means I can just write a data type like that. Say you can say the float, say x, that is equals to 0.7. I am just writing this, and I am give a condition if, and the thing is that within this you can say if whatever be the thing, this value of x is being checked with 0.7, and if this condition is satisfied, then it will print, you can say a, otherwise else, you can say that will print, say, you can say b. That is the simple thing. So the thing is, what should be the answer? What did you answer? What is the answer? What did you think? Just give me the answer, that what did you think, that what should be the answer of this particular thing. You can use the chat box, that means just give me the answer. What did you think about the, or what did you think about that particular, what should be the output of this? So the thing is that if you run this particular program, if you run this particular program, what will happen? Uh, the thing is that if you run this program, ironically, this particular thing that will give you B, you just see, that will give you B, that will give you B. That means That means that this is a simple C program where you take a variable which is x is taken as a 0.7. You are checking this value x with the 0.7. If it matches, it will print A, otherwise it print B. So the thing is that in that particular case it will print B. But you just see that x will be compared with 0.7 and simply it should give A. But ironically that will give you B. So what is the reason behind that? The reason is that in float, actually what you can say, in float there is an internal conversions routine. In float you can say, in float actually there is a, you can say, conversion internal conversion routine, and this particular internal conversion routine that will actually internally you can say store this x equals to 0.7 into like x equals to 0.699 like that. And that's why when if is checking x with 0.7 it fails, and since it fails it will give, you can say, as a B. Because if you want to understood that particular concept, the you should know how you will store the number, because that is the one of the important thing, that how you will store the number, that is one of the important thing. Since you are storing the number in a different way, that means the float, when you have to store the float number, you don't have that amount of space. So what will happen, the float will understand, okay, I have to store more in a more optimized way, and since when you have to store in a more optimized way, that will store as a 0.699 and that will give you the wrong result. And that peculiarity will also happen in Java, in Python also. So you can check in your own compiler, you will feel that okay, this problem will happen in everywhere. Now if we want to write, if you just change it into double, if you want to change it into double, then the problem is solved. If you want to change it in double, then what will happen, in the previous case it will give you B, and if we run the program again, you will see that will give you as output as A. That means when you stored in double format, then what will happen, in double format that will give you the correct result, because double has a large area to store a number, so it will not actually optimize the thing, it will remain as it is. That means if this is x 0.7, you will just remain it in 0.7, and that's why the output should be like that, right? So that is the more important thing, that is the, you can say, one of the more important thing to know about the C, because that are the basic thing in C and you should know it clearly. Now the next questions comes in our mind, okay, we have to use that particular data type like integer, that is float, like a double, like a character. Now if the someone asks you that what is the maximum number that you can store when you have to declare a variable as integer, that means when you have to write, say, integer a equals to 10, right? What will happen, in memory somewhere a is a variable, it has some address, say the address is 102011, which may be arbitrary address, and within a you are storing the value a. Now the questions, if the questions has been asked like that, that when you store a, that means what is the maximum, what is the, you can say, maximum, what is the maximum value, and you can say integer can store, right? So if you want to know that what is the size of an integer data, then you have to use an operator that is called size of operator. This is the corresponding size of operator. Actually, this size of operator will give you the size of the corresponding data type. That means like that in that particular case what will happen, you just see in that particular case, if I want to know say the size of, say I am just writing integer x, right, and just a simple integer x, and I want to know the size of this particular you can say this particular data. That means if you want to know the size of integer, what you have to write, you have to write, say, because you want to know the size and that should be an integer format, so I am just writing %d. I am just simply writing the size of, because that is the corresponding operator, and size of, and that I am just writing x. So it will give you the size of x. It will give you the size of x. That means x is declared as an integer. So it will give you the size of the integer. That is the main purpose of this particular program. And we are writing %d because that will print the value in integer format. So when we have to print the value in integer format, we will give the %d. So if you want to know the size of, if you run the program, you will see what should be the size of integer, and you just see the size of integer in my system, that is the 4 byte. If you follow some different old versions of old version book like Kanitkar and all those stuff, you will see that they will give you the size of the integer as 2 byte. That is not wrong. Actually, they will run the program in particular, in particular the thing is that they will run the program in 32-bit system, and that's why they will give you the size of the integer as 2 byte, right? But generally in 64-bit format, the size of the integer is 4 byte. So that means that is nothing but the 4 byte, right? So what we can understood from this, that means you can run this program for double or something else, and then you will see what should be the size of this, right? So I'm not going in this particular thing. Now the case is that, so what we understood, that will give you this, you can say, size of this particular integer, that will give you 4 means 4 byte, and 4 byte means 1 byte means 8 bits. That means you can say, that means actually that will take 32 bits, right? So if this is a 32 bits, then what is this? You know that the number can be positive and as well as the number can be negative, right? So like when you have to write a program for a factorial of a number, and you know the factorial cannot be a negative, and of course the factorial is a very large value, so you need to store in a large data type. You have to store in a large data type. So the thing is that in that particular case there is some modifier in C. You can say some modifiers are there. Some modifiers means there are two types of modifier. One is called, you can say, the size modifiers, or you can say qualifiers, whatever be the thing. Size qualifiers, that means if you increase the size or if you decrease the size, like in your classroom, right? In your classroom there are only 50 or 100 students are there, so you need not to use lots of integer number. It will always be better that you can use only a few numbers, right? So in that case you can decrease the size of the integer, and when you have to decrease the size of the integer, you can use the short. If you can increase the size of the integer, we can use long. So these are the size qualifier. And what I'm saying, that whenever you have to, you can say you want to write a program for a factorial of a number, and factorial of a number that has a only positive value, so that means you need not to use the negative value, and that in that particular case there is also the thing that is called the sign qualifiers, that is called the sign qualifiers. And in sign qualifiers there are two things. If you not write anything, that is automatically as a sign, otherwise you can write the unsigned. Either you can write the unsigned. Now what is the meaning of that? Now the thing is that what we understood, that like that if you write a simple character here, if we want to know the size of the character, say I am written here, I am just converting it into a char, that means character, and I want to print the size of this particular thing. If you run that particular thing, you will see the size of the character, that will give you 1. The size of the character, that is nothing but 1, right? So the size of the character, that is 1 in that particular case. That means what is the maximum value they can store? The formula is that if you use signed, signed means whenever I have to use this character a, automatically that is taken as a sign. Then the number they can store is from 127, 128 to plus 127 for character. That means the thing in that particular case, that means that is nothing but, because character will take 1 byte means 8 bits, 8 bits means 2 to the power n minus 1 to 2 to the power n minus 1 minus 1, that is the corresponding range, right, if we take the number as a character a. Now if we only take the positive strings, that means you just want to take the positive number, that means you can write like that unsigned, say character a, then what is the maximum number they can store? They can store from 0 to 255. That means in that case also the total number is 256. In that case also the total number you can store is 255. That means 0, that is 2 to the power n minus 1. So this is the formula when you are using unsigned number, and that is the formula when you are using signed number, right? So the thing is, this is the for the signed and this is for the unsigned thing. That means in case of integer or in case of double, that means if we use unsigned, you can say the range will be increasing. The range will be increasing. When you have to use the sign, then there is some portions that is a negative number, some portions there is a positive number. So the main thing is that, like that, if we take the integers, right? If we take integer, that means integer means that is a 4 byte. 4 byte means 32 bits. 32 bits means that would be 32 minus 1, that should be 2 to the power 32 minus 1 minus 1. That means you can say this is a 32,768 to plus 32,767. So what you can give the answers, that if we can, you can store it only in unsigned signed format, the maximum value that you can store as positive number, that is a 32,667. But if we take unsigned, unsigned means only positive number, then you can take 0 to, this is 2 to the power n minus 1, that means 0 to 2 to the power 32 minus 1, and the range is 0 to, you can say, 65,535. You just see, if we take unsigned number, then we can store the maximum value of integer like that, and that is the corresponding difference, and that is the difference, right? So you can see that is the corresponding difference, that you can store that amount when we are using signed or unsigned. Now the questions comes with the size. What I am saying, that if I want to write a program to store your roll number for your particular class, then what will happen? Your class will containing only 50 students, right? Your class contains only 50 students. That means for 50 students, why should I waste this amount of space, where you can see for an integer number that can store maximum 65,535, whether your just class contains only, 10, only 50 students or 100 students. So what will happen, I can reduce the size of the data, I can reduce the size of the integer, like I can write short integer a. If we write short integer a, then that will decrease the size of data. Let's see, that means if we write this code, that means, say this is, I am just writing this is say short integer x, and I just want to print the size of x. If we want to print this particular size of x, you just see the size is now reduced to 2. Now the size that is reduced to 2 only, right? So in that particular case, what we understood, if we increase or if you want to decrease the size of data, we can write like that, like a short, or you can write, you can say, you can write long integer. If you can increase the size of data, you can write this long integer. So these are the qualifiers, and if you want to write optimized, if you want to write the optimized code, and that are very much useful when you have to write the factorials code, where you know that only the positive value that are valid, then you will understood, okay, for the positive value, since we have to use this particular only we have to know the positive data we need, so we can use the unsigned, and as well as we need to store a very large number, so we can use long. So that type of thing, when you have to make your program in an optimized way, if you want to write it, that type of qualifiers are very much helpful. So now the questions about the what are the different operators the C has. So if we talk about the operators in C, actually you can say there are several types of operator, like you can say arithmetic operator, you can say assignment operator, you can say assignment operator, you can say unary operator, there are, you can say, ternary operator, there are, you can say, the relational operator, there are logical operator, and you can say bitwise operator, and there are something that is called miscellaneous, you can say, operator. What are the different arithmetic operator, assignment operator, unary operator, ternary operator, relational operator, logical operator, bitwise operator, and some miscellaneous operator? So what are the arithmetic operator? If we talk about the arithmetic operator, you know about plus, minus, star, division, modulo. If we talk about the assignment, that is equals to, plus equals to, you can say minus equals to, star equals to, division equals to, modulo equals to. For unary, either this is a minus or plus plus or minus minus. For ternary, you know about that thing that is used as a ternary. Relational means less than, you can say less than equals to, greater than equals to, either equals to or not equals to. Logical means logical and, logical or, logical not. Bitwise means this is bitwise complement, bitwise ending, bitwise ORing, bitwise XORing. This is a left shift, this is a right shift. And miscellaneous means you can say this is a size of operator, ampersand operation, star operator, and comma operator. So these are the different types of miscellaneous operator that we have. Now the question is, you know about the plus, you know about minus, you know about star, division. So we should talk about the modulo operator. We should talk about the modulo operator. So the thing is that if we talk about the modulo operator, what will happen? There are, several types of things that you should know about the modulo operator. So like you can say, what do you mean by modulo? Modulo operator, that means actually that will give you the remainder. Modulo operator that will give you the remainder. That is the main thing of, you can say, the modulo operator. So what will happen? The thing is that in that particular case, you should know like that. Say I am writing like that. Say 15 modulo 7. What should be the answer? You just calculate by your own, then I am just giving you the answer. You just do it by your own. You can write in the chat box itself that what did you think step by step, what should be the output of this particular thing. And if we write like that, you can say, or you can say 15.5 modulo, that is a minus 7. You can say minus 5 modulo plus 10, or you can say plus 5 modulo minus 10. So actually when you have to modulo this 15 modulo 7, actually that will give you answer as 1, because you know 15 that is divided by 7, so that will give you 14 and the remainder is 1. So whenever you give minus 15 modulo 7, that will give you minus 1, but that case when you have to give plus 15 modulo minus 7, that will give you plus 1, because just you remember modulus always gives the numerator sign. The first thing that you have to remember, that this modulus operator, that you can say always gives the numerator sign. So that's why this plus 15 modulo minus 7, that will give you plus 1, minus 15 modulo minus 7, that will give you minus 1, and that will give you an error, because the second thing that you should remember, modulus does not work on float values. That means the second thing that you have to note, that modular does not work on, you can say, that float values. And of course that will also give you an error, that will give you minus 5 and that will give you plus 5, because the sign is only dependent on that, right? So this is the modulus operator. Now one thing, that is the last thing that I introduced in this particular class. When you have to know about the operator, you should know about the precedence and as well as the associativity. That is a basic in C. That means when you talk about the operator, that means it has some precedence. It has some precedence and it has some associativity. That means how it actually works. So when you have to use the operator like that, there are the different types of operators that we already mentioned, like star, modulo, and you can see there are plus, minus, or you can see there are something that is called equals to. So if we talk about the precedence, that one has the highest precedence, and in that case, that is precedence is 2, 3, 4, and that one is the lowest precedence. And if we talk about the associativity, that is from right to left, this is from left to right, this is from left to right, and this is the right to left. Now what is the meaning of that? That means what is the significance of using that? Like you can say, I'm taking an example like 6 plus 10 divided by 5 multiplied by 2 plus 6. Now if we want to evaluate this particular expression, you will see that okay, division and star, that has the same precedence. You can see the division and star has the same precedence. Now the questions arises whether I should start evaluating from this side, or either we can start evaluating from this side. That means whether the 10 is divided by the 5, that would be happen first, or 5 should be multiplied by the 2. So in that case you have to go through the associativity. That means what they associativity tells you, that you should go from left to right. So you should start from left to right. So that means this is a 6, then 10 divided by 5, that means that will give you 2 multiplied by 2 plus 6, and that means then multiplication has the highest precedence, that means it should be done like that. And when you have to do the plus operation, its associativity is also from left to right, that means 10 plus 6, and that will give you 16. So that means when the same operator that will coming like that, you can say that is nothing but, when you have to deal with the corresponding associativity. That is the thing. Like that, if we take the example like that, 15.0 divided by 2 multiplied by 2 and modulo 7, right? When you have to do like that, so what we know, if you see the associativity, this you can say plus, star, division, modulo, that both has the same precedence, and the associativity is from left to right. So that should work from left to right. That means that should work from left to right. So 15.0, that is divided by 2. That means the thing is that will give you 7.5 multiplied by 2 modulo 7, and 7.5 that is multiplied by 2, that means that will give you 15.0, and this is a modulo 7, but you cannot do the modulo operation on the float value, so that will give you error. Since this is a 15.0, that means of itself that should be taken as a float number. So you just remember the thing, that would be taken also as a float number. So whenever we have to write %d, that means that is the integer. Whenever you have to write %f, that means that is a float. Whenever you write %c, that means that is a character. Whenever you have to write %s, that is a string, and whenever you write %u, actually that will give also unsigned integer, that means that will give you the corresponding address, right? So I think uh, you will understood the corresponding string, because the thing is that are the different things. Actually I am trying to introduce this. So in the next class, you can see we will start the next thing, that means the input and output, what should be the return type of printf, what should be the return type of scanf, and all those stuff. And believe me, that are too much interesting. And if you if I should cover something else, you can write in the chat box of this particular video, and if you write something, I will eager to cover that particular thing. So for today, a good night. And if you want to write something, you can write in the comment box that what should be the topic you need to learn, or whether you need some modifications, or whether what type of things that you face the problem in your semesters, so we should cover that particular thing.